Welcome to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are going to do a wrap-up of the 2021 WSOP. It was a challenge and a question whether it was actually going to happen. Of course, because of COVID, 2020 didn't happen. They did kind of have a hybrid where they did bring the final tables together, but this was the first time that everyone came together at the Rio. And unfortunately, for the last time at the Rio. Since 2005, it has been held at the Rio, and now it will be moving elsewhere. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I'm so pleased to have my two guests. This is becoming kind of an annual tradition now, and I love it. We have the founder of CardplayerLifestyle.com, Robbie Strazynski. And also, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, we also have Chad Holloway, who is executive editor of the US for PokerNews. Thanks for joining us as well, Chad.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is, like you said, a fun tradition now.
We've done this at the end of the year. Kind of last year, we did an end of the year wrap up. But of course, there really wasn't much going on this year due to COVID. It did pick up, obviously. And with the World Series being so far at the end of the year, I thought this would be a perfect time to kind of do a World Series wrap up, and I appreciate you joining us. And so let's get right into it because there are a lot of topics. Obviously, 88 bracelets live. There were 10 online. There was actually an extra one for Pennsylvania, but a ton of action that we had. And let's get going right away about kind of the impressions that you guys had of the World Series. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccine mandate and everything, everyone was questioning whether this was going to be a successful World Series or not. People even questioned whether they should have it. And they did. They obviously set the mandate. Now, everyone had to have the vaccine, which I think turned a lot of people around. It turned me around, to be honest. I actually went because of it. But wanted to get your guys' impressions. Chad, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, the 2021 World Series of Poker, looking back on it, I remember that first week specifically, wondering how things were going to go. And it got off to a little bit of a rocky start. I actually played in the first event, the Casino Employees event, which of course is near and dear to my heart. And I went to register for this event. And I ended up, and I was in the Diamond 7 Stars line, the line that's supposed to be shorter and go quick.
Yeah.
And I stood in line for about 2 hours with just about, like 40, maybe 40 people ahead of me. It took 2 hours to get through 40 people. And I thought, my God, if this is going to be how it goes, this is going to be a disaster. Fortunately, that was just a hiccup. And that's what we've seen right at the beginning of the WSOP was a sort of speed bump, if you will. And that by speed bump, I mean, people getting used to having to get verified and prove their vaccination.
Right.
For the staff to learn and get used to verifying vaccinations, and then also just the registration process. We had a lot of new staff throughout the WSOP this year, behind the counters, dealers, what have you. And so for them to get their feet under them, the registration issues did eventually ease up. They got more staff. They smoothed out the software process. So all those concerns I had were alleviated. And really the big first test was the reunion, I think, where we had the massive turnout, a $500 buy-in, $5 million guaranteed tournament. And of course they hit the guarantee, surpassed it. And I think at that point it was like, okay, everything's going to be fine. This WSOP isn't going to be a disaster, at least. And, looking back on it now, I think it turned out fine. And that first week, some learning curve, but other than that, I think it went pretty well.
And we've seen that kind of hiccup before. When Colossus hit for the first time, it was, we could say a lot of expletives right now, but it was a cluster. It was just unbelievable. People sold out, couldn't get in, 2 hour delay, et cetera, et cetera. So this isn't the first time. You can't blame it solely on COVID. And I don't want to say you really blame the WSOP. This is an unbelievable Herculean effort to put all this together. So congratulations to them. And when, like you said, when they hit that guarantee, I think that was a moment where everyone was like, this might work, because I really didn't think they were going to hit the guarantee. I think that I thought they were like writing off $500,000 and saying, you know what, life goes on, whatever, let's move on. When they hit that, I think it was like, wow, this might work. So good for them.
And I've said it before, real quick. Give them credit for not altering the guarantee. They had every excuse to do it, but Ty Stewart and his crew said, "No, we're going to stick with it. And I think they deserve some recognition and credit for that.
Absolutely. Because I think if they did, no one would have said anything. If they brought it down to 3 million, who would have said anything? Everyone would be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Right. Yeah. So absolutely. Robbie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only natural. The previous real, so to speak, WSOP was summer 2019. Right. So, after 2.5 years, there's a little bit of ring rust, so there could be a little bit of, it can be excused for that. But like you said, from Ty Stewart, Jack Effel, Gregory Cacone, all the way down, they really did the best they could, and they shook off the cobwebs pretty quickly. And thankfully, it's almost like we ran pure. Thankfully, no scares, no issues throughout the entire 7 weeks of the WSOP. And the vibe was pretty good. Like you said, poker had sort of been coming back throughout the year in the live event sense. But it's not really back until the WSOP takes place.
Right.
And, they set almost like these super standards for themselves, so we judge them based on that. 2 years ago they did it better, that sort of thing. We have very high expectations of the WSOP, and I really think, as you both said, kudos to them for pulling it off. And people were just happy. There was kind of like a general pleasantness when you're walking down the halls, when you're at the tables. We're just happy to be there in the first place and playing. So that was really nice. Of course, also, no one really knows what to expect number-wise. Will it be up? Will it be down? Like you said, so they hit that first guarantee. It's good. Overall, numbers were down. WSOP always like to, bigger and better and raise the bar every single year, and that's only natural. But this is, it's almost cliche, a year like no other. And to have done as well as they did numbers-wise, with so many people still roaming the hallways, it did kind of feel it was fall, but still summer camp kind of a feel. Everyone was back, happy to see each other. And frankly, also there are those other variables as well. People not able to come from Europe, right. It being in October, in November, when, people definitely have to take time off work. It's not like a summer vacation kind of a time necessarily. So a lot of those things, but all things considered, I think everyone involved could really say it was a successful WSOP, and perhaps even above expectations.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think from my I agree with you, Robbie. From my standpoint, when I played for about a week, and when you played in the events, I will tell you that you really didn't notice it. You really just felt like you were at the World Series. I remember Monday, I think, and I really thought the number was going to be down. And when the number started clicking, like 1,600, 1,700, 1,800. I was like, wow, this is just like a normal event. Yes, the attendance was down, like you said, about 20, 30%, but that's primarily because European players couldn't come over unless they were the real committed ones who spent 2 weeks prior to kind of get into the country, kind of through Mexico or Canada or whatever it was. Thank God Corey Aldemir did that. Corey Aldemir did that, or else we wouldn't have a new champ. But I think that the only the difference, as I said, playing wise, I don't think you really felt much of a difference. First of all, whether you had 90 tables or 110 tables, how are you going to feel the difference, right? But I think the difference that you felt was the outside events, right? I knew of years where people literally made their summer living playing sit and goes. And the sit and goes were just packed every single day, packed lines after line after line. And I remember going by one time and there were 3 of them going. And I was like, wow. Satellites were canceled, unfortunately. Cash games were going. I think that if there was one thing that was still there, cash games were still going. Daily tournaments, which we have seen in the thousands, which we have seen first prizes of $20,000, $30,000, those were down as well. So I think that the events themselves, which of course is really the center of the World Series, they went off very well. I think the extraneous stuff, not so much. And understandably, right, if you're going to go to the World Series and be a spectator or play cash or play these dailies, why are you going to go this year? Like, this isn't the year to do it, right? All of us, we're trying to win a bracelet. We're going to go. You give us a vaccine mandate, we're going. So I think that, like you said, a success, absolutely success. And I like your statement. I think it might have been better than they expected, because it could have been, what some people feared was just going to blow up, and it didn't. So good to the World Series. Great that we had a successful 2021. And of course, 2022 is right around the corner. There were a lot of stories. Let's not talk about the main event. Obviously, that was a lot of stories in and of itself, especially with all the coverage. But there were a lot of stories at the World Series. And let me kick it off by, I think that it's the number one story. It was the guy who lives, breathes WSOP, has said that he wants to win 24 bracelets and he will win 24 bracelets. This is a quote from him, not me. He picked up his 16th this year. He set a record for the most final tables with 7. He finished runner-up in Player of the Year for, unfortunately, the 4th time. And, you know, he had his controversies, you know, he Phil being Phil. But the Poker Brat is alive and well. Phil Hellmuth, an incredible run at the beginning, taking over Player of the Year, had a little bit of a run at the end and finished runner-up in the big pot limit Omaha to Jeremy Osmus, who won his second bracelet. Daniel finishing third, and Daniel and Phil finishing 2-3, ultimately to Josh Aryeh. Incredible what Phil Hellmuth did. Congratulations to him picking up his 16th bracelet. And I will say, guys, I'm going to take another one here. Sorry. He almost picked up his 17th multiple times. But if you guys remember, 87, 88, 89, Johnny Chan was trying to go for 3 in a row. It would have been the first time anyone won the same event at the World Series 3 times in a row. But Phil Hellmuth denied that, winning his first and really kind of creating the Poker Brat mystique. This year, he had that opportunity again. He had the opportunity to stop a 3-year streak in an incredible event, $10,000, 6 max, dealer's choice. But he couldn't do it. Adam Friedman won it for 3 consecutive times. We can't say 3 years in a row because there wasn't 2020, but 2018, 2019, 2021, in my opinion, one of the most impressive, at least top 10, and it could be top 5, impressive events to win. This isn't just a regular event. This is a very specialized event, dealer's choice. You got to know over 20 games. You got to know them all. You got to know when to play them. You got to know how to play them, what to choose, etc. Incredible achievement. Both of those gentlemen, to me, were the 2 really big stories of the year. So, Chad, what about your thoughts of the World Series?
Yeah, one of the most impressive things to me was the performance of Michael Adamo, who just continued his absolutely incredible tear. Yeah, in 2021, it seems like every year there's a breakout candidate. Daniel Coleman, Fedor Holtz, Justin Bonomo, right. And here we have Michael Adamo in 2021, no doubt. Leading up to the WSOP, he won the Super High Roller Bowl. He won the Poker Masters. He's won like 4 of the GG Poker Super Millions online. He won a Party Poker online Super High Roller earlier in this year, and now he wins 2 bracelets, which were his 3rd and 4th respectively, in 2 high roller tournaments. He's just on another level, really. He just continues to crush it, and he's doing something. He is going to be the next evolution of the game. I have a feeling. We'll wait and see, because he's clearly doing something that sets him apart from everybody else.
Yep. How about you, Robbie?
So, we all see the big names, the high rollers, the big events, that sort of stuff. As you mentioned, Hellmuth's always going to make headlines, Negreanu, Adamo, Friedman, those sort of things. There was one sort of on the recreational side that really caught my eye. Kudos to her, Amanda Botfeld. She's an author of A Girl's Guide to Poker. She and her dad, who taught her how to play, together entered the tag team event, and they just had kind of this, charmed run. They went all the way to 3rd place, and it was really cool. It's just, my dad taught me how to play poker. I'm sure there's, just a story that resonates with so many of us. I mean, you're kind of following along with, the PokerNews live reporting, and especially I know Amanda, she's written for CardplayerLifestyle before. It's just really cool to kind of see, and root for them to make a deep run. So that was really special. And something else just special, back to the big names, anytime Doyle Brunson makes an appearance at the World Series, just, heads turn. And he didn't just pop in, say hello. He played in multiple events, He was, kind and charming, a gentleman to everyone who wanted a picture or asked for an autograph. So that's always just, super cool when Doyle comes back. It's just, the crowds flock to him.
If you had to make bets, who was going to show up at the 2021 World Series, and it was Phil Ivey and Doyle Brunson, you're not winning that one. I mean, it was just unbelievable, right? I mean, that's not what you expect, and that's kind of what happened. So some really good stories, obviously, from the World Series, like you said. A lot of two-time bracelet winners, a lot of them. We talked about Michael Adamo, Jeremy Osmus, Player of the Year, Josh Arias, Scott Ball, Anthony Zeno, Martin Zamani. He won 2 online. And then I just want to put one shout out there. Every year, there's a player who gets his name crossed off that list of best player who doesn't have a bracelet. Jason Kuhn, well deserved. He deserves it. He probably was at least top 5, if not top 2 or 3. He really, really was one of those players that should get his name off of that list, and congratulations that he did. Talking about players who really have incredible names, you got to talk about the Hall of Fame. Every year, Poker Hall of Fame nominations, players. This year, the nominations, a lot of them. Antonio Esfandiari, multiple times. Chris Ferguson. Lane Flack was kind of the sentimental favorite because obviously he just passed away. Ted Forrest, who I really believe deserves and will eventually, and probably all of these players will eventually. Elke, Bertrand Grospellier, Mike Matusow, Michael the Grinder Mizrahi, Matt Savage, and Isai Scheinberg from Poker Stars. Ultimately, it went to Eli Elezra. And Robbie, you are very close with Eli, obviously, having translated his book into basically being the primary translator. Talk a little bit about Eli and just why he deserves it so much.
Well, again, the first thing to note is that, anyone who already gets the nomination is already, deserving of considerations. That's, it's important to mention that. It's not that he's deserving any more than anyone else over there, but, he certainly fulfills all the criteria to be in the Poker Hall of Fame. He just turned 61 years old. He stood the test of time. He's been playing the highest stakes games. He's primarily a cash player. And I'm going to go ahead and, rattle off some tournament statistics for you. He's got the WPT title. He's got 4 WSOP bracelets. 60 years old. He goes in final tables, the Poker Players Championship, 3 other final tables this year. He just hasn't stopped. So some players you say, okay, well, storied career. What have they done lately? This guy just, he only really plays WSOP and maybe a couple other, tournament series during the year. And yet he still makes it happen. And bread and butter, 6-7 days a week, the highest stakes cash games, respect of his peers. And, how could you not, almost in a sense? It's almost like, what took so long in a way. So it was pretty cool. And as you said, a deep personal connection at this point. I did translate his book, Pulling the Trigger, Hebrew into English, but he's become a friend of mine, a good, close friend of mine, my family's as well over the last few years. So on a personal level, it was also pretty cool to watch your friend get inducted. The one thing perhaps that was missing from his resume all these years to finally get there, it was pretty cool.
And for people who haven't read the story, go onto CardplayerLifestyle. You'll read the story of Robbie flying all the way over to one of Eli's final tables at the last minute. Kind of a neat story. We can't go into it here, but definitely read into that. And I will say on a personal note, Eli and I have played together many times, deep in events, final table, deuce to 7, 10K. And he's just one of those guys that you see him and you just smile. And, I immediately texted him saying congrats. And I remember seeing him and it was like having your uncle hug you. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so great to see him and congrats to him. So, Chad, what about your thoughts of the Hall of Fame?
I think Eli getting in is well-deserved. I was very happy to see it. It's, in fact, it was a highlight of mine of this WSOP to be there when that happened and to talk to him. I love the WSOP the Poker Hall of Fame, if you will, which is run by Caesars and the WSOP. I do think, though, there are some issues with it. And number one, just having one person inducted, as in years past, it's been two. Right now, it's just the living Hall of Fame members who are voting, where it used to be members of the media. I used to have a vote. I like to see that return. If for no other reason, then I have doubts if some of the living Hall of Fame members, let's just pull one out of the air, like a Crandall Addington. How much does he know about an Anthony Zeno or a Jason Kuhn, or these guys who are deserving to be in are going to be eligible soon, right? And so I think the media helps bridge that gap quite a bit. And then there's the long talked about backlog, right? You named out all the people who were nominated and they all deserve to be in, and you say they all probably will get in at some time. Yes, but not for only inducting one a year, especially with Kuhn, Zeno, and many Rast. They're all turning 40. They're all going to be eligible. They're all deserving to get in. And so the WSOP and Caesars needs to address this. And I had an idea for next year even is, look, you're going to be moving to Bally's in Paris. It's a new chapter of the World Series of Poker. Let's make a new chapter of the Poker Hall of Fame. And if you remember, at the 1979, when the Poker Hall of Fame was established, they inducted 7 people into the inaugural class of the Poker Hall of Fame. So you have this precedent, you have this history. You could say, like, hey, we're going to a new place. It's a new chapter. We're going to take the Poker Hall of Fame back to when it first started. And this year is a special. We're going to induct 7 people, help clear that backlog and tie it into the history of the Hall of Fame. And I don't think anybody would really have a problem with that.
I like it. I like that idea. I agree with you. I think this is going to be an issue. And, you know, I'll just rattle off some names. Like you said, Mizrahi Zeno first, right? I mean, they just turned 40. You've got Brian Rast, who has said he feels like he deserves to be in there. John Manette. Now, let's go to 2025, when players turn 40. Listen to this list that if you do one a year, we're going to be dead by that point. Ben Lamb, Jason Kuhn, Justin Bonomo, Isaac Haxton, Phil Galfond. I honestly didn't even like search that hard. That was just quick. We're not talking. How about the next year? Jason Mercier, Tom Dwan, Bryn Kenny. Oh, Joe Cada's the following year. We're not even talking about the Stephen Chidwicks, Michael Adamo, Fedor Holtz's of the world, by the way. This is going to be a major backlog. So whether you're inducting 2 or 3 or whatever it is, I also have throw out a couple other ideas. One, let's look at the Baseball Hall of Fame, because they have had a long tradition. They do it a little differently. They have a veterans committee, and they have different committees on how they can vote people in, not into the general. And I would propose that here, maybe an old timers committee. And again, I don't want to put people in old timers, right? Like Mike Madison would kill me if I put him in an old timers committee. But my point is that after you get to a certain age, maybe there's a veterans committee that literally only the Hall of Fame members who are inducted can vote for, right? And then you can get somebody in every year through that veterans committee. I would also argue, and maybe I'm being specific, you know, maybe we're being a little biased as all of us are part of the media, but the contributors of the world, right? Those people, in all honesty, the Matt Savages have been nominated 7 times. How many times does he have to be nominated? Let's be honest, Matt Savage deserves to be in. But if you're relating him to other players, it's very difficult for them to look at Matt Savage compared to Eli Elezra, Lane Flack, Ted Forrest. Ted Forrest has X number of braces. Matt Savage doesn't. Matt Savage deserves to be in. End of story. But it's very difficult when you're comparing apples to oranges. So my argument would be, why isn't there like kind of like a media committee or a contributors committee as well? Even if it's we can get somebody in one every other year or every 3 years or whatever it is. And I would propose that, you know how they have a 40-year-old mandate for the players, maybe for the contributors, because if you contribute, you got to contribute for a long time. Maybe there's a 55-year limit. Why I say that? Savage is 53 right now. He didn't get in. Next year, he'll be 54. I don't want him not to get it next year. That's not my point. But we had the Chip Reese rule because he turned 40. Well, I think it should be the Matt Savage rule. Matt Savage should get in, and then when he gets in, that year should be the minimum point, and then contributors from there. And like I said, it doesn't have to be every year, but maybe every other year or something like that. Anyway, food for thought. I think these are all great topics. I mean, we literally could have an entire show on each one of these topics, and maybe one day we will. But when we come back, we obviously have got to talk about the main event. It was a great one. It really was. There were a lot of stories this year, and you know what? It happens every year, but it's so great to see it in this year. So when we come back, we'll talk about the 2021 World Series main event, our thoughts here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show.